Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. I'm Jim, and I got Eli. Will be joining us shortly. Um, it's July 15th, 2023. I guess we can call that the halfway point of the summer, certainly in the Northeast. Been hot. People been dealing with hot and out west and Arizona and Vegas and so forth. So it's been hot here in New Jersey. So stay cool, folks. Um, So this is a good show. I know this seems like it's kind of a lull in sports, right? No basketball, no hockey, no football. That's coming. Um, but first and foremost, I never have and I never will start the show without a absolute gracious and appreciative audience that sends emails and texts and calls to Steve, who's he's doing okay. I saw him last week and he's really fighting hard. And again, I just can't thank everybody enough for all the support they give him. And like I said, I hope one day he's going to be back with us on the show. So our monologue this week, was giving this a lot of thought about, all the salaries that these guys are making in sports now and basketball. And I keep asking the question, where's all this money coming from? Right. So I was just looking at this, and let's take the NBA for example. And like I've always said, Adam Silver is absolutely a marketing genius. Picked up where David Stern left off, and with he's turned this NBA summer league into, people are going to these games, people are watching these games. It's the talk of the town. You get to see the top draft picks like Brandon Miller and Victor Wembanyama, and they're only playing two games. They don't want to overdo it in this kind of a forum where it's basically meaningless. But what this is why the NBA is a money making machine. I mean, they just take these ideas and now it's on ESPN at the bottom of the screen. Summer League scores. It's crazy. Um, but hey, that's where this money's coming from. They just come up with these ideas and it just generates interest in the sport and so forth. So we're going to touch base on the NBA in a little bit, but look at the other sports. What's going on, right? Goodell in the NFL. I mean, you want to talk about manufacturing money. These guys are amazing. Um, they're playing games now in London and Mexico City, and he's turned the NFL draft into a 3-month event, which generates tons and tons of money for the NFL. And again, I mean, you just got to capitalize on it. Like Sports with Mono and Mono, people are listening. We had a great week, a lot of viewership, and you know, um, you got to give these guys credit. They keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And baseball, right? They're starting to get involved with this, right? Now taking it international. Played games in London this year, and actually, the baseball season is going to open in South Korea next year. I think the Padres and somebody's playing, but this is exactly what you got to do. So, note to Gary Bettman from the NHL. Yes, he put this outdoor games in Fenway Park and stuff, Wrigley Field. It's absolutely cool as hell. But you got to see, maybe you got to get on this international thing, play a game in some, I don't know what country, I don't think it's ever going to take off in the Caribbean and all that kind of stuff. But hockey's an international sport, and they got to get on board to increase popularity. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and send us an email, of course, at sportswithmonoandmono at gmail.com. And let's jump right into some stuff. And this is for Mike Garvey, who's been watching Wimbledon and Wimbledon. We got the women's final today and the men's final tomorrow, and it's really good. Great story. First unseeded woman, Andruzhikova, playing against Ons Jabeur, who's probably maybe the number one player in tennis on the women's side right now. So that's today. And then tomorrow, it's the matchup we all were hoping for, right? Novak Djokovic, who this guy just does not seem to want to let up. He seems so determined. But today's going to be the big test, right? We've spoken about it before that Alcaraz is going to be the next Djokovic and Nadal and Federer. He's that, and he's so young. He's only still only 19 years old, which is hard to believe. But I think this is a good match. It could go either way, but I think Djokovic is so determined. I can't see him letting this slip away, and it's going to slip away at some point because this kid Alcaraz is a superstar in the making. I just don't know if the stage is too big at this point. He seems like he can handle the big stage, but that should be a great match probably tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So, they've battled a lot of rain at Wimbledon and a lot of cancellations. So, the viewership was kind of crazy, but I don't see any reason why somebody would miss that match tomorrow. It's going to be
go
great.
check it out. It's going to be a big match and another important milestone in sports history. And it's finally a good sports match that's happening this week. And just to bring back to your monologue real quick, Jim, the NHL does play an international game, and that is in the beginning of this series. It's called the NHL Global Series. They play 1 or 2 games usually at a different country or location. This year is going to be in Melbourne, Australia. Is where they'll open up 2 games, and that'll be Arizona versus Los Angeles Kings. I know a few years ago, the Devils, they played in Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah,
I don't remember this.
So they do have a global series. They do play 1 or 2 games in that country. This year it's Australia, and on top of that, they have the 3 outdoor games as well.
Okay. You should be the commissioner of the NHL, Eli. Anyway, one other note before Wimbledon, before we move off. Got to give a shout out to Chris Eubanks. I mean, what a great story this was. Makes the quarterfinals at Wimbledon. He's from the United States, and I saw an interview with him. What a really nice kid, very humble kid. Shocked by this. It's funny because he didn't like playing on grass, and now he ends up making the quarterfinals at Wimbledon, and he gave it a good run. And keep that name in your on your radar because he's going to be a good player too. So tennis is looking really good. Enjoy the matches today and tomorrow.
Yes.
So let's move on to the Major League Baseball, Eli. Right?
All right.
Had the week off, right? And we had all the stuff with the home run derby. We had the
we both lost our picks. Just want to make that clear. We lost our picks. I said Peter Alonso. You said Julio Rodriguez. We did, but it was a good match. It was a good, fun tournament.
Wow, he calls me out. That's cool, though. You're right. I did have Julio Rodriguez, who had one hell of a first round, though, didn't he?
Absolutely, he did. He did a great round, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. wins the home run derby, and great match, and that was all on ESPN from Seattle.
And
cool game.
Hey, his father won the home run derby. How cool is that?
That's right. I mean, that's right. Yeah, it's a really cool experience.
Vladimir Guerrero Sr. is a Hall of Famer and a home run derby champ. So no doubt.
Absolutely.
But they really did a great job in Seattle promoting this, and that's what Major League Baseball does.
Absolutely agree.
It was a great event. I was a little surprised that Alonso was going to do this because he just, coming off a wrist injury and stuff. I'm sure the Mets weren't crazy about that idea.
Oh, absolutely agree.
Hey, he had a good run as home run champ, won 2 derbies, and
yes, he did.
Like I said, I always thought that the home run derby was starting to go in decline. Like the big stars didn't want to do it. Now they all
now they don't want to jump on it. Yeah.
Yep. Right. But that put a guy like Julio Rodriguez on the map, right? We don't see Seattle play a lot. He's on the West Coast, but now people know who this kid is, and he's a superstar.
Yeah. And back into the All-Star game, the national team won for the first time since 2012, almost a decade, and they won 3-2 the final. It was a lot of back and forth action. Looks like we had over 2 home runs that game. We had a sacrifice fly and a base hit for both the American and national side to get on the board. It was all thanks to Tampa Bay's Diaz, Miami Marlins Arez, and Toronto Blue Jays Bichette, and Colorado Rockies Elias Diaz, who gave the runs to make this incredible game. And it was boring in the beginning, but it ended well with a 3-2 victory.
Yeah, it was kind of a boring game. 3-2 is not a great,
not exciting game, but it brought
how about the way they started the game with the catches? This Arozarena and who's the guy? Garcia, right?
Yes, I believe it is.
Friends growing up in Cuba in the home run derby. That was pretty cool. They made great catches to start the game. It was really awesome.
Absolutely.
Really awesome.
And another thing I want to add real quick, the LSU star Paul Skeens goes #1 in the NMLB draft. The MLB draft happened the other day, and another big name, which I want to bring up real quick. I know it's a third-round pick. He went 72nd overall. New Jersey star Milburn came right out of high school. Steven Averia, he's heading to the Oakland A's, drafted number 72, and he was a senior this year in high school. St. Mary's had the opportunity to play Milburn this year. Bobby was on the call for that game, and
Yep.
although he did not play, he was on the bench. And yes, we did St. Mary's did play an MLB style baseball game, as he is now
Okay.
heading to the MLB. So just want to throw that out there, that we do have someone from Jersey and that played, well, not played, but was part of the team during that game.
Good. Yep. It's kind of funny that you said this because I was going to bring up the LSU. They went 1 and 2 in the draft.
Yeah.
Skenes and Dylan Cruz, 1-2 in the Major League Baseball draft. Coming off, of course, their national championship. And I was a little surprised that this guy, Tommy White, who was like player of the year in college basketball, wasn't a first-round pick. So that was interesting.
Yeah, very interesting and great.
Right? So a couple other things in Major League Baseball, and this was a first in the Brian Cashman era. It's the first time he's basically fired a coach in the middle of the season. The Yankees fired their hitting coach, right? I mean, the Yankees are not hitting. Their overall batting average is like 220. It's absolutely ludicrous. But is that Dylan Lawson's fault? I don't know.
No.
But he does bring in one of his buddies, Sean Casey, former Major League player. He looks excited. I'm not sure why he hasn't been a hitting coach anywhere else, but all of this was in the works as the season was starting to wind down in the first half. So they had to make that change. But the first time in Cashman's history, he pulled that gun,
Absolutely.
So there was actually a good video clip of Paul Casey, and Paul Casey became a very, let's call a hefty lefty, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So there was a scene, and you never see this. I don't know if I've ever seen it. Paul Casey, left-handed hitter, hits a line drive to left field and gets thrown out at first base. Oh, wow. If you could tell me when that's ever happened, we've seen it to right field on AstroTurf, right?
Yep.
But not to left field, and that was interesting. So, listen, hopefully the Yankees hitters will wake up and realize, what's at stake here. But the Stantons and Donaldsons and Rizzos, these guys, they have to start hitting. I mean, I don't think pitching's our biggest worry, right? But you can't have a team batting average in the 220s.
Pitching isn't the worry, but hitting is the problem. And without Aaron Judge right now, this is a team that's going to be struggling a lot. And as we know, it takes only one player to make your team stand out. And we noticed that especially with the New England Patriots, although they had a great coach, it wasn't enough. As we noticed that it all came down to the quarterback. So
yeah. I actually heard buzz that the Patriots may sign Zeke Elliott. I don't know if that's true or not. But,
I don't know. I'll talk about that in a second when we get to NFL.
Right.
We'll do all that. Yep.
So let's just wrap up with baseball, right? So we got the second half of the season. We got the big surprise team, right? Arizona is playing good baseball, but the Cincinnati Reds, right?
Yep.
So these are four players I think to watch in the second half of the season, and I think we mentioned it last week. The year Ronald Acuna Jr. is having for the Atlanta Braves is absolutely record-breaking kind of thing. Can he keep up that pace?
Yep.
Obviously, Shohei Ohtani is the face of baseball right now, so you got to keep an eye on him winding down. And will he be traded? Will he not be traded? It just remains to be seen. Obviously, they're not going to win anything in California.
Oh yeah.
But keep an eye on him. And how about this other kid, Ellie Dela Cruz for the Reds? I mean, this kid comes in, and the Reds are like 28-5 since he came up, and he's really taken the baseball world by storm. This kid's tall, he's fast, he's aggressive, Yes, he's very, very cocky too.
Yes.
But he's been backing it up. But he's a guy that got up, got on base, stole second, stole third, and stole home, all in the same inning. I mean, that was pretty cool. This kid's
Incredible.
really he's going to be a stud. So things are looking good for the Big Red Machine. But let's not call him the Big Red Machine just yet. But
Yeah, we
that's
get it.
reserved for the Johnny Bench thing. And listen, one other player that we got to keep an eye on. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but Luis Arraez,
Yep.
right? He's hitting 383 going in, and now it gets tough. The more at bats, the more hits you need to climb that number up to 400. But we haven't had a 400 watch in quite a while. I mean, I know he's a singles hitter for the most part, but so what? You got to get on base, right? Walks count and singles
Yep.
count, and you gotta have it backed up with the guys behind you. So we'll keep an eye on those guys. And the other thing is, the Mets, right? They come off the All-Star break. They were very, very hot. Lost the last game before the All-Star break and lost last night to the Dodgers. So I don't know. A lot of people speculating that they're going to deal Scherzer and Verlander, and I say no. I mean, there's still 80 some odd games left, so there's no reason to panic. They can go on a streak and go 12-2 and something like that, and they'll battle it down at the end. But they got a good manager. They got some good, and yet they didn't sign these guys to $40 million contracts to get rid of them because things aren't going well in the first season. So keep an eye on that. And like I said, the Yankees better start hitting because they're one game behind the wild card right now as it stands. But let's see if Sean Casey can put some magic back into those bats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Let's move on real quick. I just wanted to mention, and I know one of our loyal listeners, Diego Cruz, is our resident soccer expert, right? So this thing called the Women's World Cup is coming up, but this was the Gold Cup. This was the U.S. lost to Panama and in a shootout. And, these guys normally dominate this thing. And I was asking somebody, like, why weren't guys like McKinney and Pulisic on that? And nobody seems to have an answer. I'd have to listen to Diego's take on that. But they're a talented young group. But now you got Panama and Mexico in the Gold Cup final. And, right? So just like Eli brought up, right, the Women's World Cup is coming up. And here's a good news for all Hoboken residents. They passed an ordinance that bars will open at 5 a.m, so people can get drunk by 6 and watch the World Cup.
I just want to say one thing real quick. I just say, before I get to all my topics for the World Cup, which I'll discuss in a minute, I feel so bad for all those nurses and doctors that are working at that hospital down there in Hoboken at CarePoint. I know somebody does work down there, and I just want to give a shout out. When it's a normal night of sports at a bar, it gets ugly. And now you open up early morning, I feel super, super worried. I give all my praise to those nurses and doctors down there because they absolutely deserve every single moment of it. And I feel so bad for them. Nobody else but them.
Oh my God. Listen, nurses has always been one of our favorite groups on the show. And
I just want to give them a special shout out because I know somebody down there and they always complain about all these other, not just the people I know, just everybody in general. They complain about all those events and just, yeah.
All right, so what do you want to wrap up with the Women's World Cup?
The World Cup begins this Thursday, the 20th, and ends on August 20th. It's taking place in Austria and New Zealand. The United States plays Vietnam on Friday at 9 p.m., which is this Friday coming up. And the USA is looking for the 5th national title, and this will be last year for Megan Rapinoe's World Cup career. And all the games will be available on Fox, FS1, FS2, and in Spanish on Telemundo.
Good. Listen, I mean, it's almost like women's soccer is even more popular.
I'm going to be honest with you. I enjoy watching the Women's World Cup soccer more than I do the men's. So I'll be completely honest with you because I think it's more fun and I think USA has a chance. And the way our media markets bring up the Women's World Cup, especially for the United States, is incredible. And that's why I have more intakes on the Women's World Cup than men.
Yeah. Because you always know they're going to be there at the end. The men's team, internationally wise, and they're still lagging behind the Germanys and the Belgiums and those type of teams. So
Yeah.
good luck to the women's out there.
And
Keep
one more
watching.
thing, just for about the World Cup in general. I'll get to more about MetLife in just a little bit in NFL topics. But when we at the camp took the tour at MetLife Stadium, they said they had to knock down an entire racetrack section from the racetrack section of MetLife just to build more parking spaces for the FIFA World Cup, which is coming in 2026. So that's pretty incredible. Just want to throw that out
Yeah,
there, and we'll talk more about that in when the time comes. But thought that was
very
just want to
good.
throw that out there.
Yeah, we're gonna catch up to you on your little camp in a little bit.
All right.
Let's jump to the NFL, and right, the
Yep.
big stories is that running backs aren't worth anything anymore, right? So Barkley's
Yep.
holding out, Jacobs is holding out, Cook can't find a home. It's what's going on in the NFL right now. They're paying the quarterbacks and the defensive linemen. How about this signing with the Jets? I mean,
Yeah.
Quinton Williams gets 96 million, 66 guaranteed. And this is like the second highest, probably behind Aaron Donald, who was still the best defensive lineman. I just wondered though, is this guy that kind? Is he the second best defensive, football player? And I like him a lot. I loved him at Alabama, but you knew the Jets were going to sign him. He's a cornerstone
absolutely.
to that defense.
And he is a very important piece of defensive player for that New York Jets team, and it was absolutely the right decision. Is he the best in the league? I wouldn't say the best in the league, but he's definitely up there for a very good player, and he's definitely going to help the Jets defense out a lot this upcoming season. And another thing about the Jets, which I'll bring up real quick, they're going to be on the show Hard Knocks this year, which is an HBO show for those of you who don't know. Is that going to be a struggle for them? And is that going to take away from their start and their
I mean, listen, the NFL, like Aaron Rodgers said, they forced it down the throat. It's hard for me to believe that the team doesn't have the option to say no to this. And I don't watch it because that's just behind the scenes stuff.
No, I don't really care.
I just want the season to start. And the Jets have 4 really tough games to start the season. And that's gonna make or break. But yeah, Rodgers will be his usual wise guy self on Hard Knocks and so forth. But you're right. The NFL has the right to pick it. That's crazy to me. But
yeah, and I think it's gonna be it's gonna definitely take away, in my opinion, from this Jets team. And obviously, we all know they're gonna be overrated going in, and it's gonna be another Denver Broncos run is what I predict going in. Now, I think that Hard Knocks is definitely gonna take a little bit away from certain players, but not all. Now, for Aaron Rodgers, obviously, he was already against it to begin with, but other players, they might be too excited and might take away from that in the upcoming season. So we'll have to definitely see that.
And keep an eye out because, like I said, I mentioned Dalvin Cook before. Don't rule the possibility out. I mean, we really like this kid Breece Hall who's coming back, but he tore his ACL. You never know. That's a hit or miss whether you can come back to that form that you had. Keep an eye out. The Jets may throw an offer at Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big discussion there. We were worried about what's going on. And I have a feeling Jets will take care of him. And another thing is, I'll switch topics, go to Saquon Barkley real quick. Dan Graziano from ESPN, he was at the camp where I was at. We'll just talk more about that later. He said, if there is no deal reached with Saquon Barkley by 4 p.m. on Monday, he is technically unrestricted and has the option to play this season or skip out on this season. And he'll have the Giants. He said we can get a news story as early as this weekend or early as Monday morning. He said with Saquon Barkley and the New York Giants and all these other teams, it's just going to be a last-minute decision who's going to pay up the money. But by 4 p.m., we'll know if Saquon will be playing this season or not. So just keep
that's an interesting take by Graziano because, my understanding was, if your franchise tag, and this was something that was agreed upon in the collective bargaining agreement, you play under, and listen, he'll play under a $10 million tag. I don't know what that means about him being unrestricted if they don't come to a deal by midnight on Sunday. Because
I think he was trying to say is that if there is no deal reached, he'll have the option basically saying, will he play this season or not?
Okay, well, if he doesn't play, then he doesn't get paid.
Correct. But I don't know. But again, Saquon Barkley's mind is always different every time.
I know, but listen, they offered him a pretty decent contract not too long ago, which he
Yeah,
turned down. And I guess he didn't see the way the market was going and
yeah,
the fact that there's so many running backs out there, hey, if they can't come to a deal with him, maybe they sign Dalvin Cook. He's a little bit younger than Barkley, I think. Maybe they're the same age.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, if he doesn't play and they're talking this about he may miss the first game, well then I don't understand why. You're franchise tagged, you're
yeah,
getting paid $10 million. Come to work.
yeah.
But if he holds out, then that's
It's a
what
shame.
I'm going to talk about this in a little bit when we just touch base on the NBA for a minute. I mean, I love that these teams are playing hardball. These guys
Yeah,
can't dictate, especially when you're under contract, whether
yeah.
you play or don't play. And it drives me crazy. And
Oh, absolutely.
right, very similar to the situation going on with Damian Lillard in Portland,
Yeah,
right? I mean, he came in, says, I want to be traded. So now that throws complete chaos into the Portland organization, saying, he's been here for 12 years and now he wants to be traded and we have to accommodate him. And the general manager is taking the position, hey, if it gets done, it gets done. Otherwise, he sits and he doesn't get paid. I love this. I love taking it back from the players dictating when and if they show up to work is something that I really love that sports owners are taking these hard stands on it. I really do.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, so yeah, let's just touch real quick on the NBA and
Can I just
the
make two more?
breaking news is of
Just
course.
want to
Oh,
bring
go
up.
ahead, Eli.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, real quick. I want to bring up two more topics for the NFL real quick. The Bengals Mixon has agreed to a $10.1 million this season under a cap. He'll be with continuing with his deal with Cincinnati.
Yep.
And that was finalized yesterday. And one other big thing, if you're a New York Giants or Jets fans, get ready this season because when I was on the tour of my life with the camp this week, we found out usually the 50-yard line is usually the traditional NFL logo, and that's because they don't want to switch every game. This year, they're going to be switching it every week, and now each team will have their own logo on the 50-yard line for Giants and Jets. And here is a picture of the new logo for the New York Giants. They're preparing the field for the preseason game, which is coming up very soon. And that's the first time they've seen the logo on the field in a very, very long time. And that's a new addition added this season. We were the first to know before the media. So good to know.
Wow, Eli with breaking news here. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Very good. So listen, let's just jump on the NBA just real quick. And first and foremost, I forgot to mention that our monologue and everything we've said since is sponsored by Coriano Trucking in Summerhill, New York. My deepest apologies to one of our loyalist of supporters and just an oversight. We got so much to talk about. We've been moving quickly. So Coriano Trucking, thank you very much. So NBA real quick, just a couple of notes. This whole scenario that LeBron James wasn't going to play this year, which is so silly. This guy is playing, and he came out and said, luckily for you guys, that time is not now for me to retire. And you know what this is all about. His son's going to play 1 year at USC, right? And then he's going to play with him. So LeBron James will be around forever. And he's
absolutely
not the player that he once was, but he's going to be around forever.
Yeah, he made the speech at the ESPYs the other day for record-breaking performances, the award he won. They had to bleep out a few words from what he said. It was pretty it's funny because it's like, you got a special award, you're bleeping out words, like, all right, it's funny. And we'll talk more about the ESPYs and random thoughts in a little bit.
Yeah, just a couple other quick things. So, I was looking at this Zion Williamson. Hopefully he's been recuperating from whatever over 4 years. And it seems unbelievable that he's been in this league for 4 years already. Remember, he was the number one prospect, coming out of college. And
I remember him. Yep. And now it's like, what happened?
Right. And he's only played 114 games in 4 years of basketball.
Yeah.
And he's a big guy, but he's starting to look like Charles Barkley a little bit, and he's not
Yeah.
supposed to do that. You're
And I don't
supposed to
know what
be.
happened, but his college run was phenomenal. Nobody was the talk of the town. Now all of a sudden it's like he's in the NBA and you barely hear him, and he's more of an overrated player. And that is kind of like Russell Wilson with the Denver Broncos. And I'm going to keep mentioning that. He's going to be over. He was overrated going in. And then all of a sudden, it was like, what happened? And I
Yeah.
have a feeling that we could see that with Victor Wembanyama, but obviously too early to tell.
Well, when you look at Zion, and we've seen this before, right? I mean, maybe it's the crowd that he's hanging out with, right? Or his inner circle. They're not looking out for him, just like the Memphis Mafia wasn't looking out for Elvis Presley, right?
Yep.
You got to surround yourself with people. You have to make that commitment that you want to be that player that everybody expects you to be, being the number one pick in the draft and all that kind of stuff. So listen, he's a nice kid, but he's got to get his act together if he wants to make a name for himself in the NBA.
Yeah.
And one last thing, finally, we've been seeing this flopping going on in the NBA, right? Yep. Guys barely get touched, so now they're going to call it a technical foul.
Wow.
Which means now you're going to give up a point or two at the foul line for this flopping. But it was starting to get like
out of hand.
professional soccer, where these guys they bump each other, they roll down on the floor.
You know what? Yes, I agree with the decision. It's probably it's probably a good call to make. However, I look at it as this is going to be another every week now. All these people are going to go on sports shows and all that and say, this is ridiculous what the NBA is doing. The NBA is just becoming worse and worse. They keep calling every little thing now. And that's another big worry. I feel like now the NBA is going to lose a little bit just because of that, because they're going to be like, oh, that's not really a thing. And you called that a technical or whatever. So just be prepared, everyone, for those watching, that this is going to be a lot of controversy when it starts, but we'll obviously see. It will work for the best, and it'll disappoint in the some. It depends on who's reffing and how well of an incident that becomes.
Well, yeah, maybe so. I mean, but you're still going to get a packed house at Madison Square Garden.
Of course,
you're still going to get a packed house at the LA Forum. I mean,
of course,
like I said,
no doubt
basketball is hot. It's.
Oh, absolutely agree.
Yeah. So
yeah,
let's keep an eye on that. So real quick, before we move on to our second half of our show, let's give a little recap to Eli, who went to
one more thing. I forgot to mention the WNBA player Sabrina Asiano broke the all-time three-point contest record the other day. Can't believe
INSQ.
Yeah, INSQ. There you go. She broke the all-time record, and the Steph Curry gave a little shout out to her. So pretty cool there.
Yeah,
okay. Back to you.
She nailed 25 out of 27 3-pointers. Yeah.
Back to you, Jim.
Yeah. No, so I just wanted to give Eli just a chance to recap on. He went to podcast boot camp or something this week, and give us a couple minutes and let us know what you saw, what you learned, interesting things that came out of it.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So I went to Play Sports Broadcasting Camp. It's a traveling camp. It goes all around the world. The week I was there, they were in North Jersey and Chicago. And next week they'll be in Atlanta, and they travel all around around the United States, help teaching kids all about broadcasting. We got to meet a few guest speakers. We got to see Arda from ESPN, Dan Graziano, as I mentioned. We got to meet offensive tackle Matt Pert from the New York Giants, a Seton Hall player, and of course, my favorite, Kenny Albert, which I'll throw out the picture up there. That was me with the selfie with Kenny Albert there. Cool moment there. Asking about his new book, which is coming out this fall. We basically got to learn a little bit of behind-the-scenes action of what it's like broadcasting. We got to tour MetLife Stadium, got to learn, every little inside scoop possible, and hear everybody from ESPN's take on what's going on in the future. And obviously there's a lot going on, and I'll mention more about that and random points of interest. But
excellent.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, learned a lot, and can't wait to share my knowledge between here, my own podcast, 12th Horseshoe Podcast, as well as when I do play-by-play broadcasting for St. Mary's.
Excellent. So hopefully you got some creative ideas, because we're trying to move in, right? We were just a startup venture a couple of years ago, and we've been consistent with doing our show, and like I said, our momentum is really gaining. We had a great week of viewership this past week, and bring some tricks of the trade, as they say, to the show. And
yes, I will.
it's
Thank
great.
you.
I'm glad you enjoyed that. And yeah, Kenny Albert is one of the top-notch guys in the business for years and years and years. And Graziano was the beat reporter for the Giants for many years before he became the ESPN. So that's good stuff. I'm happy that you went there. And like I said, yeah, we're going to try to enhance our show to the point where we can at least call people and maybe get a call-in number and at least call people if they can't do the video, if they're on the road or somewhere. But we really want to ramp up our guest appearances, and that's going to happen in the short term. So I'm glad you had a good time there. Excellent.
Thank you so much.
So a couple of things real quick. Some random points of interest. Of course, this is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. And Eli, I sent you a picture this morning. We hope we can post it after we're done. I'll let you know when.
All right. Let me know when.
Just a couple things. You stole my thunder on the LSU stuff. So
sorry about that.
Somebody hacked my notebook.
Oh well. Sorry about that. No, I try to always be prepared and always try.
I know. No, I'm jesting.
It's all right.
So a couple of quick things. I saw this thing. Corey Dillon, right, came out and said, and when you think of the top running backs, and even in the past 20 years, his numbers are pretty good. He's up there with Tiki Barber, right, over 10,000 yards, and had a pretty good average. And some guys in that category are in the Hall of Fame. Some guys are not in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Tiki Barber will ever get in the Hall of Fame. And I don't think Corey Dillon should be in the Hall of Fame just because he says he would. When you think about running backs, right, you think about Walter Payton, and you think about Emmitt Smith, and you think about Jim Brown. Do you think about Corey Dillon? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No. Anyway, so listen, that's up to the ballots. And real quick on that, one of the Hall of Fame from the nominations are out for next year. And question was Tom Coughlin, right? 2-time Super Bowl winner. But if you look at his overall resume, he took over the expansion team, the Jacksonville Jags, and led them to a championship game. So I think he's a great coach. He was a great coach at Boston College and translated into the NFL. So I hope Tom Coughlin gets in, but I think Corey Dillon, either you're going to have to wait, or I don't think the name just doesn't jump off the page to me when I hear it. That's all.
Absolutely.
Right. Another thing, and a kind of a disturbing story, is this whole Northwestern story, right? And listen, I remember watching Pat Fitzgerald play for Northwestern, and he's idolized in that world. And this whole thing with this racial and hazing stuff came out, and Northwestern, this was a big, bold move for them to fire a guy that, is one of the best players ever at Northwestern. But, they said, you, as the coach, you have to have accountability. And now when you first saw that, you could say, I can't see Pat Fitzgerald tolerating any of this stuff. So I don't know how much he did or did not know. But, the Northwestern president's position was, it's the coach's job to maintain the proper culture for your organization. And this just spiraled out of control, and it seems very unusual because it's academically a great school, and you just don't see this. Why you haze people on your own team. But that was interesting, but that's not where the story stopped, right? So Jim Foster, the baseball coach at Northwestern, fired also this week. And he was fired because of bullying and abusive behavior to baseball players. I mean, what are we talking about here?
It's getting out of hand.
How do you think that could possibly be tolerated in today's day and age? Is beyond me.
It's incredible, really.
Some of that is a little bit more documented than what Pat Fitzgerald know, but this is a bad look for Northwestern University because it's just a sign of the times. None of this stuff can be tolerated anymore. And if you step out of line, it's going to cost you your job. So that was big news. Pat Fitzgerald is considered like literally one of the best players ever. He was awesome as a linebacker. I remember watching him many, many times, and it's a shame.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So one other thing, a note from a random point is, and again, he's one of my favorite broadcasters of all time. Is Dick Vitale, right? Dick Vitale is, listen, he's been battling cancer for 10 years now, and now he's got the vocal cord thing, so that's going to pose a problem. So we probably have seen him call his last basketball game, but what an icon! He was
absolutely
with
agree.
He was with ESPN from day one. He used to coach in New Jersey. I think he was the coach of Elmwood Park, if I
something like that.
Correctly, right?
Yeah.
But listen, all our best to Dickie V. He's just been a staple for college basketball for more than 4 decades, and it's awesome. And I just wish him the best. That's all. Okay. One other notable thing from the world of golf, and listen, we're still dealing with this LIV PGA merger, and I love what McIlroy is doing, saying if LA Golf to play, I'd retire from the game. That's how steadfast he's been in that position. I think it's great. But here's a name from the women's side, Michelle Wie. Remember, she'd come up. She was going to be the next Tiger Woods of women's golf. It didn't pan out. And I actually saw Michelle Wie and Annika Sorenstam play golf down in, I think it was the LPGA, ShopRite LPGA Golf Classic like 20 years ago. So she's retiring, never became that Tiger Woods we had hoped. And that's, golf is a mental game as well. And some people can get it and some people can't. But she retires at the tender age of 33. So, listen, I mean, women's golf is good. This Rose Zhang is going to be the next quote unquote Tiger Woods, right? Actually got Stanford roots, and she's the NCAA champion. So she's the new young gun. And a lot of these golfers, right? They're Asian golfers. I mean, where's the U.S.'s investment into women's golf? We got to get that going because. But I wanted to give a shout out to Michelle Wie, retires at 33.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations.
Right? Okay.
And I want to bring up 3 random points real quick, if that's okay with you.
Go ahead.
All right. So first, we'll start off with hockey. I have 3 random points here. Hockey. Patrick Kane is not expected to sign with the Rangers this season. And that is all because of the hip injury that he and surgery that he went to undergo on June 1st. So Rangers fans, be ready for another downfall season. Your star player is not going to be signing anytime soon, his agent says. He said he's been recovering well, but will not be signing anytime soon. So just understand that he'll be undergoing with that.
I don't know if they had any intention of signing him anyway, to be honest.
Good point. And over to the ESPYs. The ESPYs happened on Wednesday. It was a phenomenal show. There was writers, obviously with the writer's strike, there was no host, but it turns out Pat McAfee from ESPN hosted the show. And I watched his monologue. It was really one of the funniest monologues I've ever seen in a long time for an award show. So just want to give a quick shout out to him. And I think the best speech was the Pat Tillman Award for Service. Went to the Buffalo Bills training staff for the Damar Hamlin for saving his life. One notable message I just want to bring out to them and to hear that stood out to me the most. And I really want to say it out loud here. He said, learn CPR and learn how to use an ADA, You don't have to be perfect, but at least try and set a goal for yourself this summer. I thought that was pretty special and one of the best heartwarming monologue speeches in a long time for an award show.
No, that was good. Yeah.
Yes. Really. And one final message and quote, and I want to bring up for random points of interest. Disney CEO Bob Iger, his contract has been extended to 2026. He was supposed to give up by 2024 after coming back from retirement following the whole Bob Chapek incident. And now one notable thing, he was on an interview with CNBC on Thursday, and he said that ESPN could be off of TV very sooner than we expected, and that could be focusing more on consumering with ESPN Plus. So just keep in mind about that we could be seeing a move from ESPN very shortly. And keep in mind, ESPN does host Super Bowl in 2026 and 2030. And
Well, you know what that's all about, right? That means
money.
we're not we're going to have to start paying to watch ESPN. That's
Correct.
basically what it means.
Correct. And one other thing, ABC, which is a big part of Disney, they said in the future, don't be surprised Disney owns ABC or has any affiliation with them. So just keep in mind about that. We're going to see a lot of changes with the company, and its contract has been extended to
Well, no,
2026.
actually, I think Disney is the parent company of ABC
Yes, it
already.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they said there could be giving them up. So
Oh,
just
okay. Yeah.
yeah, so keep in mind about that. The full interview is available on CNBC. Just want to throw that out there that we are going to see a lot of changes in the future, and his contract has now been extended to 2026. Jim?
Okay. Yeah. He's taking a hard stand against the writers in Hollywood too. This
Yes,
guy,
he has, and the actors, because now they also went on strike.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay. Good random points. Thanks for throwing those into the ring, Eli.
no problem.
Appreciate it. So my book recommendation this week, and again, I'm a historian, I'm a sports guy, so most of the books we've recommended have been of that topic kind of thing. I don't really read fiction as a rule of thumb, right? But I did read a couple of books from an author named Vince Flynn, back in the day, and it was a great book, interesting kind of a thing. Like I read The Firm, and then I watched the movie, and the book was better than the movie. So I'm surprised they never made a, a movie out of this. It was called Term Limits, and it was an interesting topic about people trying to take back the government. The guy was assassinating members of Congress and so forth. But it's a very intriguing. If you're into fiction, Vince Flynn, who passed away like probably 10 years ago unexpectedly, that was a great book. I would recommend it if fiction is your exciting. He's kind of like, I guess, like a Tom Clancy type writer, right? That kind of a book. But Term Limits by Vince Flynn, that's my recommendation. I wanted to give a shout out to one of our loyalist of listeners, one of my dear friends, Eric Tenbrook from Pennsylvania. And we went to high school together, and his birthday is tomorrow. And I wanted to show this bat that my sister had gotten me. This is my 50th birthday Louisville Slugger. How cool is that?
Wow.
Huh?
That's pretty cool.
Right?
Happy birthday.
So tomorrow Eric's going to reach a milestone, which I'm going to be reaching very soon. So I'm not going to tell you how old we are, but that was my 50th birthday bat. And tomorrow he turns another milestone. So you guys do the math, right? I don't know if he's one of those guys.
Be prepared.
Right.
And happy birthday.
So, yeah, happy birthday, Eric, and thanks for all your support. It's been awesome. I appreciate it. He watches it every single week. And I got a picture. Can you post that picture for me, Eli?
Yes, I will do that right now. Here we go.
Right. Look at that little guy. That's my grandson Hudson right there. Looks like he's doing the wave, so he's already got that sports thing inside him. Awesome kid, beautiful baby, and so proud of my daughter and those kids, and I'm proud of both of my daughters actually.
Yeah.
So just wanted to share that from a grandpa to our loyal listener base.
Yes.
Notable passings. Not a big week, and which is always good for us. But there was one notable, and I know Steve remembers this guy. I know some of the older guys remember this. Johnny Cooks. He was a linebacker, second pick in the draft in 1982 out of Mississippi State. He passed away. I don't know how old he was. He had to be, I guess that's 40 years ago. Had to be close to 60. Yeah. But number 2 pick in the draft, and we say guys don't always live up to that lofty tag, right? We've seen some crappy number 1 picks, Ryan Leaf, Andre Bruce, those type guys. But he had kind of a serviceable career. Played a long time with the Colts. That's your buddy Jack's team. Yep. So hopefully he knows who Johnny Cooks is.
Yep.
And he played a couple of years with he actually was on the Giants roster when they won the Super Bowl. So he did have a ring. Number 2 pick, only had 39 career sacks, but you know what? He was a serviceable player and just never lived up to that hype, but certainly notable in the world of sports as far as mono and mono goes.
Yeah. So
R.I.P.
thoughts and
But
prayers.
played with the Colts, and I was surprised. I didn't realize he was on that Giants team that
Yep.
won the Super Bowl against Buffalo, the Scott Norwood game. Right. So covered a lot of ground today, Eli, for on such
We did.
right
For a short show,
lull
we
in
did.
sport, right?
We did a lot of moments, and quick shout out, happy birthday to Johnny Gilbert, Jeopardy announcer. His birthday was the other day, and to
Okay.
John Fanta, which I met last year at camp. So happy birthday to
Excellent.
the two of them, which was this past
Good.
week.
You got it. And again, of course, we close with, send us an email. We'd love to hear your feedback, gotten some comments on YouTube now and so forth. And we really appreciate it. And again, of course, the outpouring of support for Steve has just been just spectacular and heartwarming for me. And I wish everybody stay cool in this hot weather.
Yep.
And we'll be back with you next week, Eli.
Yes, we are. We'll be
really
back and we'll be better.
happy you're bringing some good insight to the show, and I really do appreciate it. And
Thank you.
Like I said, you're doing a great job behind the curtain as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, have a good one,
All
everyone.
right, guys. So enjoy your week, and we'll see you guys next week. But enjoy the Wimbledon final tomorrow because it's going to be epic, as they say.
Yes. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great day.